Hey everyone, welcome back to the Swift Kitchen. We sure wish you could be here with us in it, but while your team is scattered and at home, we're really excited to connect with you via virtual pizza night on Friday. So the puppies, Lola and Kiri, miss you and they'll be here. So let me show you how we make our dough. Pizza dough is super simple. You have 5 ingredients. You have yeast, water, flour, olive oil, and salt. And you just take all of those and you throw them in the mixer and let them mix for 5 minutes and you've got dough. So you start with a cup of warm water. You don't want it hot or cold, you want it just warm. And then you take a tablespoon of yeast. We happen to have a lot of yeast here. I wish I could share it with all those people who are wanting to bake and can't at this time. Then you add 2.5 cups of flour. We always use King Arthur bread flour, but to be honest, just use whatever you have in your pantry and it will turn out great. And then you add a teaspoon of salt, and then a tablespoon of olive oil. If you have any olive oil left. That's it. Okay, then you take your little dough hook and you crank this up and you start mixing. And you'll let that mix for about 5 minutes. Okay everybody, we're just at the tail end of our 5 minutes and it's coming into form a ball, what you want to do at this point at 5 minutes, if the dough is sticking to the bottom, you want to slowly add a little bit of flour at a time until that mixes up and it's not sticking to the bottom. If you've got a lot of dry bits at the bottom, put a teaspoon of water in there until it mixes in and until your dough forms a ball. That will be the key to it. So then you're going to take that down. You're going to actually get a bowl. And if you have any olive oil left, you'll just coat the bottom of that so that your dough doesn't stick. And take your little dough hook out. And I had a pizza mentor whose name was also Debbie, and she taught me how to make dough by sight, not as much by specific measurements as how the dough looked and felt. And she said to me, Debbie, you want that dough to feel nice and soft as a baby's bottom. So then you put that in your oiled bowl and you're gonna put a little plastic wrap over it and you're gonna let it sit for about an hour. I like to put a cloth over it just to kind of trap that moisture so the dough gets nice and happy and rises. So we're gonna let that rise for about an hour. Typically on Fridays, I'll start my dough at about 4 o'clock so that by the time guests are coming at 6:30, our pizzas are almost made, but they get to kind of enter into the pizza fray, which is really fun to have your guests come and you be making your food and it still be a mess, because that says to me, welcome. Okay, so our dough has been rising for about an hour. We're really looking to just see that it's doubled in size. If it's warmer out, it will rise faster. If it's colder out, it will take a little longer. But it's very happily risen. And what we like to do, we love to make a mess in our home on Fridays. We're not afraid of mess. and we make it often. So I just take the dough out, and you want a nice floured surface. Because we've been making dough so long and know the thickness that we like, I know how it feels in my hand, in the palm of my hand in terms of thickness. So I'll reach out and grab a fistful. And at this point, your dough still has, it'll have air bubbles in it from when it's rising. So it's nice to kind of knead that out at this point. So I tend to work with it for just, you know, maybe about 30 seconds or so, just kind of pushing the air bubbles out and getting it nice and smooth and forming it into, I find it easier to roll when I form it into a circle, but it's fun to see what shapes take place when you roll the dough. We think everything that you do in terms of rolling a dough, there's no perfect crust. And when they turn out a funny shape, we call that artisan. So when you first start rolling the dough, it's gonna feel a little bit tough. And for people rolling for the first time, it might be a little intimidating because it feels like the dough's really resistant. And in all honesty, at this point, it's really important that you remember that you're the dough boss. So even though the dough feels like it's being stubborn, it really does listen, and it wants to go where you're trying to take it. So lead the dough is what I say. So I like to work it in, you know, roll it a few times and just keep turning it so that it's not sticking. And I use my hands a lot to shape the dough. And again, I find the dough really wants to be led, so tell it where you want it to go. Now, depending on where you're putting what you're baking this on, I use a rectangular pizza stone. So the shape I'm going for is to kind of max out as much pizza on that stone as possible, because we tend to have a lot of people eating pizza. And so that's what I'm going for, but you may want to do a circle. Just depends on what you're baking on. And we're getting close to the shape that I want. And behind me in the oven, humming, is my pizza stone getting nice and hot. So while I start rolling, I throw my pizza stones in there so that by the time these are done, they're nice and preheated. And again, take your time. See how I'm not rushing this, and I, again, am rolling, and I'm constantly using my hands. So this is a happy shape for me. I'm maxing out my stone. And what we're gonna do is grab one of our stones, and whatever baking surface you are using, oh mercy, hope we have olive oil left, oh yes. Put a little bit of olive oil on your stone or your cookie sheet, whatever you're gonna cook it on. And then if you have cornmeal, sprinkle that generously. We love the texture this gives to the bottom. And again, we like a nice crispy crust. For some of you, you will want to use more dough and not roll it as much. So I just empty off the flour there a little bit. And again, you can still work that crust. You're still the dough boss. And then just in case there's a little bit of air still in there, we poke it all over with a fork. And then throw that back into a 450 preheated oven. And we let that cook in the oven for about 5 minutes. Now everybody's oven is going to be different, so again, do it by sight. So look to see if there's just a little bit of brown forming on it, and then you know your crust is done. Okay, so we are going to check our pizza crust. And after 5 minutes, our oven has done a fabulous job. It's a nice light golden brown. Your oven may take more or less time, but right now really what you have is this beautiful canvas, and you can layer it with any flavor profile. Really look at the person you're making the pizza for. We like to design pizzas around people and foods that they love. So if they like something crazy, like our friend Steve loves jalapenos and pineapples. So of course that had to make its way onto a pizza, which we affectionately call Only Steve. And like my sister loves Indian food. So for her birthday, I wanted to design a pizza that was had Indian flavors in it, so I did a chicken tikka masala pizza. So whatever you put on your pizza, whether you're making it for yourself or someone you love, put the stuff that you or they love on the pizza and it will be amazing. The only rule that we have for pizza making is that you need to make sure that the corners are happy. You make those corners happy by the fact that when you cut that pizza, each of the corners has all of your flavors on it. That's the only rule. So I can't wait to see you on Friday. I think the last two things I want to say is that when we met your coach at a Parkside alumni event, we really enjoyed hearing about her philosophy of coaching and wanting to call you guys to passion, pride, and intensity every day. I think the other thing that we loved about what she was looking for in you guys was, how would you respond in adversity, and how would you respond when you made mistakes? And when she was recruiting you, she watched how you responded, and were you gonna cave into yourself, or were you gonna still participate and be a part of the team? And Joel and I really, we thought that that was a really awesome way to recruit. So I think when you're making pizza too, if you make it and you make a mistake, don't worry, just like keep making pizza, because the first time I made pizza, it was really bad. I had a 6-month-old baby and a husband who ate it, and I just kept making it. And so think about the people that you're gonna wanna connect with after this quarantine and just practice. It's like when Jasmine came over and she was in our basement doing pull-ups, and I asked her, I said, how can I get to do a pull-up? And she's just like, Debbie, you need to practice. And so I hope for you guys that you find some new fun in the kitchen, and if your pizza crust flops, that you just keep making it. And we really do see it as a fun way to love other people. So I can't wait to see you on Friday.